Welcome to By the Books, the podcast helping business owners navigate the complex world of business, tax, and bookkeeping. Now, to the owner and president of Klein, Lindsay Klein.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Lindsay Klein with Klein, honest, accurate bookkeeping performed on time, and your host of By the Books. I'm here today with Susan Bryant, who I am so thrilled is joining us again for the second time. Thank you for coming back.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Lindsay. I'm really excited to be here.
Your first episode that we did together was very well received. I had a lot of positive feedback from it. Did you get any feedback from your end?
Yeah, absolutely. And same. So I was really excited to be a part of it and glad to be back again to share our thoughts on this topic too.
Yes. And I think we may have alluded to this in the first episode. I'm not sure, but basically what makes a good client. Is that how we could summarize it?
I think that's good. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we could go the other way. And we were talking about this just a moment ago. Like,
Yes.
You could go with the negative, like, don't be a bad client. But, for the sake of optimism and always looking on the bright side, I think it's good to say what are the qualities of a good client or a
Yes.
great client, right? A spectacular client, which I
There
think
you go.
everybody wants clients like that.
Yes. And I will say this, being around a lot of professionals, especially CPAs and sometimes attorneys, I am hearing a lot from them that it's part of their annual process to basically cut out what they would call the bottom 20% of clients, the ones that either are just giving them way too much frustration or they can't get what they need or whatever it is, that they're just cutting those out of the practice to move on with clients that they want to work with.
Yeah, I mean, you only have so much capacity.
Yes.
And so you have to be mindful of that in your practice, right? And you're also sort of thinking about your own quality of life and who you enjoy working with. And so, sometimes there's no amount of money that somebody can pay you to help make you continue to working with somebody. So if they were really they have bad behavior, bad attitude, whatever it is, don't embody these qualities we're going to talk about, then it's really easy to just say, hey, I just don't think we're a good fit anymore. You'll need to go find another CPA attorney, whatever, to service you. So, and we call that pruning.
Cutting back to grow stronger.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, sort of like you do with your plants in the spring, right? And in some other cases, you're also just increasing the fees. Like if it's just that much of a pain, then there is that PETA surcharge that some people get charged, just it happens.
And what does PETA stand for, dare I ask?
Pain in the... So
I figured it was something like that. I've done that a time or two.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had to think about the business side of our business, our culture, who our people are dealing with, all the different things that we're balancing too. I mean, just like any other business, these are the same things our clients are actually working on as well. And so, and that's no surprise that, we're trying to cultivate a base of clients that are, match the culture of our organization and what we're trying to achieve. So
exactly. Well, I will say for my own business, and you're big on culture, which is one of the things I love about you. You really value your employees. I am the same way. That it is one of the founding things that was very foundational in me even starting my company is I wanted to build something for which I could basically become the employer I never had and always wanted.
Oh, yes.
Because I hated being an employee so much.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've done to cultivate, or at least attempt to cultivate that positive culture, is for my employees to know that they are my most valuable asset, my most valuable resource, and that I care about them and their well-being. One of the ways that I do that is to continuously show them, as much as we love our clients, and I love our clients and I want to help them, but at the end of the day, they are my priority. And so I have been very intentional about when we've had a frustrating client where their stress level is getting increased and they're liking their job less. I've been very intentional to make sure they understand you're the priority and your well-being is priority here. And so even intentionally in front of other staff members, I have told my employees, say the word and I will fire this client.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I want them to have the control to know I don't have to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then, someone who yells at somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Just bad behavior in general.
Yes.
And that's, we're volunteers in serving the clients in a lot of cases. So that's really
Absolutely.
important, to understand that should be a reciprocal relationship.
Yes.
You're going to get the best of us if you give if you give your best to us.
Exactly.
And it's got to be mutually beneficial. It's got to be,
Absolutely.
there's to be mutual respect there. So many different things. And one of those things is not just to the leader of the organization, but to everyone else, whether it's the person answering the phone all the way, up to the top and everyone in between. And that's one of the things that makes them a good client is they appreciate the fact that it requires so many people to make things happen in the right way. And that is all for their benefit.
So is that maybe where we start with this, is to say the first way to be a great client is respect the way you treat people, appreciation, like just general attitude.
Yeah. I mean, just understanding the position that you're in as the client and the position that the CPA or other professional is in terms of providing the service, and setting clear expectations, both sides. And if you don't feel like those expectations are getting met, then talking about them, not going on a tirade, not being, argumentative or having that bad behavior, but just having a conversation.
So how can a client help with that process of setting expectations? What could a client ask or say or do at the beginning of the engagement to make that the whole relationship goes smoother in terms of expectations?
Yeah. Well, I will say this. So not all, especially in our industry, accountants are great at explaining every single component that's going to go into an engagement. Okay, so there is work to be done on both sides.
Certainly.
But it's asking questions to define the scope of the engagement and when things are going to get done. And I mean, the client asking those questions, and also making sure that you're working with someone who has the same type of communication style and method of project management that you do. If that disconnect exists in the beginning, you'll likely not have a successful relationship.
So you would be the exception, Susan, but I have talked and spoken with a lot of CPAs, and of course I have a lot of bookkeeping clients and have dealt with their tax professionals. By and large, generally speaking, and you'll probably agree with me, the typical personality of these type of professionals is introverted and typically avoids human contact.
Yes. They have an aversion to the telephone.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
I've heard that, I cannot tell you how many times, from clients who their main frustration with their tax professional is that they can't reach them by phone. They typically want to communicate via email.
Yeah.
And if at all, and that's been probably the number one complaint that I've heard repeatedly.
Yeah.
So when you say to make sure that their communication style is in line, what if the professional doesn't have a communication style? What if it's avoidant?
Yes, then you have to find someone who matches that. I mean, there are lots of CPAs, attorneys, bookkeepers. There's all sorts of professionals that exist. Keep looking for the person who matches you the best, because overall it's going to be a relationship. It's not a transaction. It's not just a tax return. This is the person who's going to be fundamental, especially an accountant or a lawyer. They're fundamental to your business success. So you have to go on the hunt and you have to interview them and ask them a lot of questions. Of course, asking for referrals, to people who can be, kind of match that.
Yes.
This really is important. I think there's just not a lot of questions that go into it. They just assume all accountants are the same. They serve all the same types of clients. And, that would be another thing that I would say is that if you have a 1040 that needs to be prepared, going to a very large accounting firm to just have an individual tax return prepared is probably not going to be a good match. If you're in a specific industry, find an accountant that really, specializes in serving that industry. You will have a much better experience and relationship with them because they will understand your business better.
Now that does make sense to me. That is one of the reasons why I make an intentional effort to network with other tax professionals and make sure that I have people that specialize in different industries, in different types of returns, like you mentioned 1040. So that's an individual tax return. If somebody has just a 1040 with no business, there are certainly people that specialize in that. But as you said, going to a big ginormous CPA firm, they're probably specializing in the big guys.
Absolutely.
And they're not going to be putting probably a lot of time and attention into an individual 1040 return, whereas another accounting professional that specializes in that would really value that client.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So finding that person that really is not only does what your situation, but is passionate about doing your situation. That I think is really important. That's a great point.
Yeah, and also just like if you have a business, the size of your business, that really matters too, because that's going to dictate in a lot of cases your budget. The smaller your business, the smaller your budget likely is going to be. So you are likely going to be finding that you're going to be working with probably a smaller CPA firm. And as your business grows, you have to be thinking about, is this professional still the right fit for me? Can they still offer me all the same services that I need as my business continues to scale and expand and I get into a variety of different complexities? So the client also has to be evaluating the relationship too, thinking about where they are right now and where they're going to be. I see this in financial advisors too, where maybe a business owner is just starting out and they don't have a significant amount of assets. But, fast forward, 10, 15 years, now their business is just throwing off tons of cash. They've got lots of, liquid assets now. Generally speaking, the same accountant is not going to work in both situations. The same financial advisor, the same attorney. I mean, it's just that you outgrow professionals. So the client also has to recognize that too. And that's part of being a good client, is to evaluate what are the services that you need? What are the services that are being offered? Does this person have the technical experience, capacity, resources to really serve you in the way that you need to be served? And it's okay if it doesn't match anymore, but there's no reason to get angry. There's no reason to, you might be disappointed, but it's seasonal, right? This is life. It's seasonal, right? Things are temporary, and this happens all the time. Clients who eventually outgrow.
Which is a good thing. I mean, that's, if you have a business, that's where you hope to be, right? Is that your business is growing and that you are outgrowing your professionals. That is nothing but a positive thing to reach that point.
And that probably goes back to the expectations and sort of understanding what the professional is the best at, what they're great at, and how they can help you get to that next level. And once they do, whether or not they're still a good fit. But, it's just, you can't leave it on autopilot. It just doesn't work. It's just something that has to be continually evaluated.
Absolutely.
So I know there's probably a lot of accountants who don't want to hear that either. And that's probably where the rub is and why they're doing the pruning at the end of every year, right?
Yes.
Is because they're recognizing it, but the clients aren't.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's one of these things that it's a process. Accountants grow, they move upstream, serving a different set of clients, right? So that all the clients that are sort of getting pruned off, they have to go to a different resource. So it's just the evolution of the CPA's business too.
Well, what I think it's important for both professionals and the client to realize is that not everyone is a good fit for everyone.
It's true.
And in fact, from a professional standpoint, and I'll say this even from my bookkeeping company standpoint, not everyone that comes in our door or picks up the phone to call us is a good fit for us. And if you're a professional that thinks everyone that comes in your door is a good fit, you probably need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
That is going to be a problem for you.
Well, you'll probably end up not meeting expectations.
Right.
Which will lead to a lot of disgruntled clients.
Yes.
And so, you're not serving them in the best way either.
Right.
So you got to get real clear, CPAs, bookkeepers, everybody's got to really hone in on who they serve the best and serve those clients well.
And I would say, even from a client standpoint, even if someone has highly recommended a professional and had a great experience with them, your situation is different. and it may not be the best for you, even though it's the best for someone else. So if you go into it with that mindset, knowing, okay, this is a good professional, but maybe not the best for me.
Right.
That's different.
That's different. Exactly. Could not agree more. Yes. And I think there's also some reluctancy, if we're talking about like on the CPA, bookkeeper side, right? There's this reluctancy to create these collaborative relationships with what could be deemed competitors. And that is like a whole mentality that has to go away.
Yes, I agree.
Because we need to ultimately be looking for what is the best fit for the client.
Yes.
So even if I can do it, that doesn't mean I should do it.
Right.
So I need to be having this base of other resources available. So when somebody does come my way, gets referred to me, I can say, oh, hey, that's probably not the best fit for us.
Right.
Might be a little too expensive, might not be the right industry. We don't serve in that way. Here is, 3 other amazing resources that could really benefit you.
And I'm sure you probably do this too, Susan, in your company. But I can pretty much tell within 5 minutes of talking to a prospect whether or not it's going to be a good fit for us, right? Because I've just gotten through so many different scenarios at this point that I know, okay, for these reasons that this is probably not going to be the best fit.
Yeah.
But this is why I've been very intentional to network with other bookkeepers and other bookkeeping companies and even CPA firms that do bookkeeping, because I don't want to just say, listen, I don't think this is going to work out because of XYZ, but have a nice day.
Right.
I would much rather say, here's where I don't see that this would be the best fit, but I happen to know someone that specializes, whether it be industry or your software or the fact that you want someone in person coming in your office, which we don't do, things like that. I happen to know someone who loves doing that.
Right.
Let me introduce you.
Yes.
That's such a more positive interaction than, I'm sorry, we're not the right fit. Have a nice day.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So I couldn't agree with you more on having those synergy partners, not seeing them as competition.
Well, and part of that is also, in terms of being a good client, is understanding the business side of the professional's business. So a lot of times clients will come to us and, they just don't understand deadlines. They don't understand the tax deadlines. They don't understand the constraints, time constraints, resource constraints that we're working in certain time frames. And so a lot of that also sort of goes back to these expectations and really helping the client understand where they fit in to the processes and help them to sort of understand that part of the professional's business.
So are you saying a client should not come to you on April 14th with a box of all their documents and say, here, I need this done by tomorrow?
Yeah.
Is that not how it works?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Definitely not. To me, I think one of the things that is really important is just having understanding. I think the clients bear some responsibility in understanding what deadlines apply to their business.
So is that one of the conversations that should be had before the engagement starts?
Yes, and there needs to be reminders. It's frequent, that all of a sudden we'll get an inquiry on, we'll be working on, say, for example, Texas franchise tax extensions. And we'll send an email and they'll say, what is this? I've never even seen this before. This is an annual thing. So it's really important for you to have these things in your calendar and as a client and understand what the processes are each year. That's part of your responsibility. It's your business. The CPA is going to help you. We're going to assist you. But being a good client means that you do have to bear your burden of understanding what your responsibilities are when actions are required on your part. That is, I think, one of the qualities of a good client. They don't want to, it's not, I don't have to do anything anymore. I've got a CPA.
Right.
It's that I am in partnership with this CPA to make sure that I'm always in compliance, that I'm getting all the services I need. My books are getting updated or examined. I'm working with all the right people, but I bear that responsibility and I accept it.
Yes. And this is probably something important for clients to understand too is taxpayer responsibility versus tax preparer responsibility. I actually did a podcast episode on this where we did some case studies. We went through actual court cases where the client was trying to claim, hey, I shouldn't be responsible for all these penalties because I had a professional taking care of this and they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And we're not successful with that defense. At the end of the day, you as the business owner, as the client, are responsible for making sure the deadlines are met, making sure that things are done properly and accordingly, even if you hire a professional. So I would say it's important for that reason alone to make sure as the client that you know when all your deadlines are supposed to be, because I mean, as much as we would all as professionals like to think we don't make mistakes, we do.
Yeah, I mean, balls get dropped and, and entities get formed and no one tells somebody and then boom, you gotta, things happen. Now, that probably goes into another thing is like proactive communication.
Yes.
I think this is like a two-way street, major two-way street.
Yes.
And just like we would, spoken before about the fact that communication, like CPAs are sometimes not the best. Sometimes clients aren't the best either.
That is true.
They don't read emails. They don't read engagement letters. They don't really be bothered with the details. They don't answer questions, provide documents, talk to your CPA before something big happens in your business. And all of those things are a recipe for a bad relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
So
let's drill down on those a little bit. I know for us in the bookkeeping realm, one big problem is lack of response by the client or lack of documentation.
Yeah.
Obviously, we cannot do our job. You can't do taxes on your side if we don't have documents that we need. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of documents necessary to have a clean set of books and to have a properly prepared tax return. Yep. And some clients were asking, part of our process on the bookkeeping side is weekly updates to our clients. And for some clients, that is literally copy and pasting the last email where we've asked for a bunch of different documents that we need.
And that's
to
likely
continue.
That's going to get you on that 20% list at the end of the year. That's what's going to happen, because it's frustrating. We experience this too. And it's like we've asked for the same thing for 6 months.
Right.
And at that point, now if they send everything, we have such an influx of work to do, it disrupts the schedule. We have a production environment.
Right.
Everything's production related.
Right.
It's just like a factory, right?
Right.
So it is one of those, the respect of replying and providing information timely. If you want to get it from the CPA, you as a client it has to be reciprocated.
Right.
It has to go back the same way. We're both held to the same standard in terms of communication.
That's exactly right. And I'm sure you're used to having those clients. We sure are on our side, where you don't hear anything from them. You ask for the same thing over and over for months and months and months. And of course, that list grows over time because with every passing month, now there's a new set of documents you need. And then it's not until the client decides either they need funding from somebody or they're refinancing their house or tax deadline is impending, and then they send everything all at once.
Right.
And they need it right now.
Exactly. This emergency situation has arisen. And then, the professional is expected to rise to this challenge and, drop everything else, every other good client that they're working with who is responsive, who does give information. We drop all of those to serve you client who's now needy.
Right.
And it will land you up on that
on 20%. The 20%.
It will. It's because it's too hard for there's CPAs, bookkeepers, tax professionals. We have to make choices as to how our capacity is going to be consumed. There is a finite amount of time available to get this work done. So if you are disruptive, if you are problematic, and you create issues in our business as opposed to help us to get the work done, then you will single yourself out. You will become the squeaky wheel and off you go. And then it gets really hard as a CPA, especially, to then say, well, where do I even want to send this client? I don't want to wish this work on anyone. This person is hard to get along with. They don't respond. Where do I even send this? And so a lot of times you're having conversations with a potential person you're going to refer them to and say, let me give you some clear expectations on what, are you willing for me to make this referral to you?
I have had those conversations before where we have let a client go. And again, I don't like to just have those conversations where, sorry, have a nice day. I do want to give them a resource, but you're exactly right. I'm calling that referral partner or sending them an email and letting them know, listen, here's the problems we're having. And this is what I will tell them. If you decide to engage with this client, make it worth your time.
That's right. Absolutely. Yes. Now, I will also say this, like, sometimes it is our fault. As a CPA, as a professional, we've not done a good job of turning a bad client into a good client. We've not had this conversation with them. And it's important that we do. So we've got to also understand our own deficiencies and be willing to recognize our weaknesses, get better. So
how does that look? And have you done that? Where have you actually had a conversation with a client and say, listen, this is not working?
Well, one of the things that we're doing now, and we had not done this in the past, is every time we bring on a new client, we do a 30, 60, 90-day conversation.
Okay.
So we're asking questions like, what's going well? Well, how's the communication going?
That's great.
What members of your team are responding? Are there people who are not responding? Are your expectations being met? We go through sort of
that is fantastic.
Right. So we're trying to have those conversations.
Steal that.
Yeah, it's great. It's working really, really nicely because now we are the ones being proactive about making sure that, every client is a good client when they first come to you, right? It's about managing their expectations and helping them to understand your processes. And this sort of segues into another sort of thing I have that I wanted to talk about too was CPAs, bookkeepers, it doesn't matter, attorneys, everyone's got a process that they follow. So one of the jobs of the client is to conform to those processes. So for the clients who come in and say, well, I don't want DocuSign, I want paper. Don't email me here. I want my bill to go here, but not to here. I want 6 people on this. It's usually just, okay, all those exceptions to our general processes, again, will land you up on the 20% thing at the end of the year because it's disruptive. So you have to be willing to conform to the processes. If your CPA or bookkeeper or somebody doesn't have processes, that might be a warning sign to you.
Definitely.
Right? Like, maybe this person isn't as organized as I need them to be. So again, client interviewing and understanding, this probably goes back to a little bit, we understand your business, you need to understand ours.
Right.
But don't try to dictate to the professional how to run their business. Conform.
Well, and that would probably be good questions to ask at the beginning, because if you are a person that loves paper and you don't want electronic documents, there's certainly tax professionals out there who are on the same page with you.
100%. Know who you are. To thyself be true, right?
Right.
Know yourself, have awareness about what type of client you are and who you think you would work best with. So
absolutely. So find someone whose process is more of that in-person paper interaction.
Right.
And then it'll be a much better fit.
Amen.
And they're not resenting it.
Yes.
On either side.
Yeah. And on the CPA side and the bookkeeper side, we also have to resist the urge to make these exceptions. We're very people pleasing. We were very customer service oriented, and especially people who are selling work, right? Who are bringing the clients on. It's a very disruptive if the people who are bringing on new work come in with this list of exceptions to what they know the processes are. So that is, again, probably a recipe for not a very successful relationship, because we're already at the beginning modifying all these processes, all these procedures to conform to this one client, and that's not how we work. So that's also sort of, everybody has to understand how it goes, what the protocols are, standard operating procedures. This is how it works. So we're looking for clients who conform to that, who can conform, who want to conform, and similarly, we're telling them what the processes are so they understand them and have good expectations. two-way street.
Yes, absolutely. And definitely good conversations to have at the beginning to
At
understand.
the beginning, yes. Not 2 years later
Right.
when everyone's like, you stink as a professional. Well, you're a bad client. I mean, it's just not going to work out the way
Right.
that you want it to.
And it's not necessarily an issue with either side. It's just different arenas they work out of, right? They think differently, they operate differently. It's not that one is bad and one is good. They're just not on the same playing
They're
field.
just different, right?
Yeah.
So it's a matter of communication, of explaining,
Right.
So that everyone sort of understands how it works, and it's okay. And every business is going to run differently. I mean, if you go to one restaurant and then go to a different restaurant, they're going to do things differently. You go to Dickie's Barbecue,
Right.
the line is going to operate differently than if you go to McDonald's.
Yes.
They're just different.
Right.
Just not that one is better than the other. It's just they have different ways of doing it. So understand what their system is, and you're going to have to conform. So
Yeah, that's good. I like that. So I had sent you an article last night, and I wanted to read it on the podcast. I thought it was interesting and funny. I don't know if you got as much kick out of it as I did, but this article is titled "The 8 Nightmare Clients." So the first one is the late client with no patience. Of course, the client who waits until the very last minute to make an appointment is the one who expects his or her tax return to be completed the next day. We like the old saying, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part, although tax season sometimes feels like one long emergency. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
We
that
kind of
is-
touched on that a little bit.
yeah, I think one thing on that is that we need to be very clear about what those deadlines look like. Like if you want your return prepared by April 15th, when do you have to get the information to us? What does that turnaround time look like?
So that's another good thing to talk about at the beginning.
Absolutely. Setting
That
clear
if I want
expectations.
my return done by this date, when do I need to have everything to you?
Yes, because
That's an important question.
Some people do not want to extend their returns. It's just in their mind they don't want to.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or they have some kind of deadline, or, if it's a partnership and they've got investors, they've got to get the K-1s out so that the investors can file their returns. So there may be like a deadline, that's coming up that they want to make sure they're meeting the expectations of someone else. That's just awesome. That has to be spelled out
Yeah.
really clear. But the whole late thing, to me, this is a signal for someone who shows up late and is late about the tax stuff. This is not a priority to them. And as much as you want to make it a priority to them, it's just not a priority. So again, this is a quality of a client. You decide whether or not you want to take this person on.
Well,
Because-
and from a professional standpoint, really the message that the client is sending is, I don't value you.
yeah,
I mean, that's essentially the message that's coming across with that.
yeah. And this needs to be a priority to them. I mean, this is your tax compliance.
Well, sure. As obviously as accounting professionals, we think so, right?
Yeah, I mean, the IRS thinks so too. So there's lots of people who really want you to send that stuff in on time. But it's prioritization, just like everything else in your life.
Yes.
If you make it a priority, it will be a priority. That's it. Do you care about it? Yay or nay?
Yep, that's good. All right, then we have number 2, the cheater. Someone who wants to take a deduction he or she does not qualify for, or claim a non-existent dependent. If a tax professional goes along with the shady tax practices, he or she is liable to lose their license. How often? You probably have this happen pretty often.
It does come up from time to time. That will land you on an immediate disengagement. That's not something that we will tolerate at all. I would say that it's rare and it's infrequent. Now, I do think that there is this range of risk tolerance.
Yes.
We have some clients who are like, I don't want to take any deductions because I'm afraid that they really aren't business. It's like, well, I feel like that's probably a little too conservative.
Okay.
And then we've got people who are like way on the other side where they're like going to Starbucks every day and they want to write off every single breakfast they ever eat. And, there is a happy medium there.
Yes.
Not that I don't think that we should be aggressive and take advantage of every possible a tax law that's available to us, like we should try to maximize our deductions. I mean, legally,
right.
Within the parameters, so long as they're supported and we have proper evidence to indicate that this is, ordinary in the course of business. Let's take it. So
absolutely.
So I'd say they do come up. They're not that frequent.
Well, that's good.
In our business, anyway. You might find more of that, sort of that, like the national tax prep chains and things like that. Now,
okay.
It has come up where somebody has like, I had the exact same expenses on my Schedule C, my SATASL. Like, your phone bill is the exact same amount for 7 years. I'm like, don't think so. That's just you plugging a number in there. And that's not acceptable. I mean, you have to have adequate books and records as a taxpayer. So, no, that doesn't apply. Got to have accounting
certainly
records.
we can help with that. If anyone needs help with those, those bookkeeping needs,
exactly.
We at Secline are happy to help.
That's right. And you got to do the work though to take the deduction.
All right. So then number 3, the overly frugal client. Everyone likes to save money, but people who hire a tax pro to prepare a return and then don't pay the agreed on payment aren't cool. Trying to negotiate for a lower price isn't cool either.
Yeah.
Do you deal with this a lot?
All the time.
I have a story about this.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
I had a client that the first part of the engagement went well until she got the first bill, which we have everything laid out very specifically in our engagement letter. And we even talk to the client about their budget and make it clear that, whatever their budget is, we will stay within those parameters. And we did. But we outline in our bill, and maybe this is a mistake I need to reevaluate, I don't know, but we outline what the work performed. Mm-hmm. And she sent me an email where she had basically redlined pretty much every line of everything we had done and questioned everything.
Right. Didn't want to pay.
Didn't want to pay.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Essentially, that's what it came down to, is didn't want to pay.
Yeah, so I would say that this is probably a bigger conversation about how pricing works, right? in a professional, where it's traditionally billed by the hour, right? So we don't bill anything by the hour anymore. Everything's fixed fee. So those are the exact same conversations that we had time and time again. And I got so tired of administrative, like, well, why did it take you 0.25 hours this month, but 0.5 hours the next month? It's like...
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes longer. So we just scrapped all that and said, this is what the job looks like. So, but that again has to do with the client understanding what the systems and processes are in the firm. And everybody works a little different. And some people really I want to know exactly what you're spending time on. And others are more comfortable with maybe a subscription type model. Either way, you as a client have to understand exactly how you're getting charged. Now, the frugal side of things is like, Ron Baker, I don't know if you're familiar with Ron Baker, he is the father of value pricing. And in his book, Implementing Value Pricing, he makes this statement: clients are not price conscious, they're value conscious. To me, that is what we as professionals have to continue to do, is reiterate the value of the services we're providing. Then the price becomes irrelevant, because if the value is high, the price doesn't matter, right? So I think about that a lot. But I also know that there are some people who still want to get something for nothing.
Oh, yes.
So those are the people who are going to haggle with you and negotiate. And the way that I handle this as a CPA is it's just non-negotiable. You don't go to the grocery store and haggle with the cashier over a gallon of milk and what that costs, or price of eggs. I don't know why you feel like it's applicable in our business. It's not. This is the price. The price is the price.
There you go.
That's how it works. So,
have you ever seen Father of the Bride?
Yeah, it's been a long time though.
When he's stressing out about the cost of the wedding for his daughter, and he ends up having just a complete meltdown in the grocery store, and he gets upset because there's 10 buns in a package, but there's 8 hot dogs. And he just has a meltdown saying, I am tired of paying for things that I don't need. And he starts pulling buns out of the package and telling the clerk, I'm not paying for one more thing I don't need. That is one of the best movie scenes.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't understand that sentiment, right? So he's definitely going to be on the 20% list. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, I think. But again, the onus is on us as professionals to explain the value. What are we going to do? What do you get for it? How do you benefit? And sometimes we actually have to show people, like, this is the ROI.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap.
Yes.
Right? And we don't want it to be cheap. If it has high value, we need to be charging what it's worth.
Yes.
And the client needs to accept that. So it's going to be expensive. If someone's going to save you $100,000 in taxes, it's not going to be $260. If somebody's going to save you $500,000 in taxes, it's not going to be $500.
Yeah.
I mean, and if they are, then you might need to go up to that second point about the cheater, and that might be the professional, and you really need to be questioning that. So it's just a little bit. It's just you got to manage it on both sides, right?
Right.
But yeah, you're not going to get something for nothing. It doesn't happen.
Well, I can tell you that when I got that email with the redlining, that was not a client I cared to continue the engagement.
Sure.
And I promptly sent a credit memo for the entire amount of the invoice and said, I'm so sorry we were not able to add any value. I wish you the best. I did give her a referral for another person, but as I stated earlier, I let that person know I even forwarded her the email and said, if you engage with her, make it worth your time.
That's right. Exactly. Amen. I mean, just get that PETA charge again.
Yeah, it's not working to your advantage, frugal clients. In fact, you're actually kind of shooting yourself in the foot there.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be CPA hopping, bookkeeper hopping. I mean, it hurts you.
It does.
It hurts you a lot.
Absolutely.
That continuity of knowledge, someone really getting in, digging in, understanding your business, like, you're hurting yourself.
Yes.
You're delaying the achievement of your long-term goals.
And at the end of the day, if they find someone to work within the parameters of what they're willing to pay, they're working with someone that doesn't value themselves. And why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that person willing to work for that?
Right.
So there should be, to me, a big question mark going up.
Hey, I just looked. I got a referral for a new client yesterday, and I look up every accountant. I see who prepared their tax return. I go look them all up. I go to the Texas State Board of Public Accountancy. I verify that they're a CPA, and then I go look at their website.
You are thorough.
Yeah, well, I want to know. I want to know, like, who is this preparer? And I mean, is this person really a CPA? I can't even tell you the number of times where the client refers to the person as a CPA, and then I go look them up, and they are not a CPA.
And I think a lot of that is because a lot of people don't understand what a CPA is or what it means.
Yeah.
So it may not even be that the professional put themselves out as a CPA. It's just that people link accounting with CPA.
Absolutely. Well, in this particular case, I go out to the accountant's website, and literally on the front page, it says, CPA experience at no extra cost.
Oh, okay. So they are touting themselves as being a CPA.
They are a CPA. Looked them up. But why would a CPA not charge more?
So they're okay.
They're like, they want to do it super cheap. Like, I don't understand why you as a CPA would. I mean, this just totally doesn't. I don't understand it. Like, why do you want to compete on price? You have the experience to charge more, and it's likely more valuable.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just some strange things happening in our industry. But I would think the same thing you're thinking, right? Like, this accountant undervalues themselves so much. It makes me wonder a little bit about their experience.
Right.
Like, if they are willing to charge for it, maybe it's not good experience.
Yeah.
Maybe it's bad experience.
Exactly.
And I don't want that.
Right. That would be the question I'd be asking.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, I mean, you got to apply a little bit of thought. Price is not necessarily the determinant of quality.
Absolutely.
Okay? It goes the other way, too. Something super expensive could be really, you can go to like a really big CPA firm, and the prices are really high, but you don't get the attention that you need as a smaller client. So,
and that is one thing I will say that weeds a lot of people out from us, is because we're not the cheapest. And I am very upfront about that. We will never be the cheapest. If I'm the cheapest, I need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
So I am very upfront about that. But also I will tell prospects, you can certainly go and find a bookkeeper for probably $15, $20 an hour. Maybe a solopreneur, stay-at-home mom, something like that. I hire people in those ranges. Never once have I looked at their work and said, it's perfect, send it to the client.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So we have, basically with us, you're getting an accounting department because we have multiple levels of review before the client ever sees it.
And you need that in any organization that's providing service. I mean, just like an attorney's office, a paralegal does the work, attorney reviews it, right? And probably a partner level attorney is going to review it if it's a major litigation case or something like that. I mean, these levels of review are important.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's where people sort of like, well, I want it to be cheap, but you know, so the frugal thing, like, you have to evaluate what you really want.
Absolutely.
You know, you want cheap or you want something that's right.
That's right.
Which is more important to you?
There you go.
So,
all right, number 4.
Okay.
The know-it-all. Oh, I got a story on this one too. The know-it-all. Some clients believe they know the tax law better than the tax professional. If your accountant is a good one, this shouldn't be the case. If it is the case, you need a new tax professional.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, how many times have people like, well, I was at the country club the other day and my buddy said, you know, he doesn't pay any tax. He hasn't paid tax in, 10 years. And I don't think, maybe he doesn't know how to read his tax return. That's probably part of it. He probably didn't have anything extra to pay when he filed his tax return, but like made a giant extension payment. Like, they don't understand their own taxes. So a lot of times this is like a misnomer, right? They think they know what they're talking about, but they don't. So, and
not every situation is the same.
No.
I mean, maybe he hasn't paid taxes because he's lost money every year.
Right. Definitely don't want to be taking business advice from him. That's probably not a good idea, unless it was orchestrated as a tax planning, strategy, which that can happen. But yeah, I mean, I think that the bottom line is that clients have to be coachable. They have to want to listen. They have to be eager to learn. They can't just, if you know everything, why are you here?
Right. Exactly.
Why are you here? Just go do it yourself. If you think you have the ability and knowledge, and then it's free to you, and so just do it yourself. But that DIY mentality, I mean, this is the same people who are not mowing their own yards, cleaning their own houses, doing their own plumbing, doing their own HVAC maintenance, changing their own oil in their car. But for whatever reason, they think that they have enough knowledge and expertise to do their own accounting and taxes. That's ludicrous.
Absolutely.
And someone needs to tell them that. Yeah. And if they get mad and they don't like it, they don't belong with you. You need clients who are coachable, want to listen to you.
Yeah.
They want to take your advice. And even if they don't necessarily do everything that you recommend, they're open to hearing it. Yeah. Because that's ultimately what you want to do, is provide ideas.
Yes.
Have you thought about changing this way that you do your accounting and your invoicing? Have you thought about how you track inventory could do it better? We have this, there's a system that can help you.
Right.
Better way of tracking time for your hourly employees. Better way to do payroll. Better way to... It's a million different ways to do things better. But some people are so rooted in this, like, well, this is the way I do it and I'm never changing. If you are an innovative person and you want to help move your clients along, that's not going to be that's not going to be a bad combination. It will not be a good fit. So might be another thing for you to understand as yourself, as the client, and as a professional, who do I work with best? Right. Temperament, mentality, the growth mindset versus the scarcity of mindset. Like,
absolutely.
Who is this person, and who responds best to me? Because if you're the type of person who, like, this is the way I do my bookkeeping, it's the only way I'm ever going to do it, right? Then you're probably not going to work well with someone who's like, hey, let's set up Bill.com and automate this and get the bank feed set up, and this is going to will be a disaster, right?
Yep, there again. Expectations in the beginning.
Yes.
All right, then we have the paranoid client. Some folks are just scared of e-filing or the potential for an audit or any variety of other tax-related issues. And they call their tax professional every few days to voice another concern. But calling isn't going to help, since the tax professionals don't control the IRS. Mm-hmm. How often does this come up in your firm?
Yeah, there's a couple things that people especially paranoid about. Extensions are one of them, and I don't know why, because the wealthiest taxpayers in America extend they have
Are people concerned that they're going to get audited because of an extension?
Yes, and that's
interesting.
That's crazy.
Because extensions are extremely common.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost hazard a guess that people are more likely to get audited if they don't file an extension.
Really?
Yeah. So I think there are some things that there are some transactions that are a little bit more sort of on the IRS's radar, if you will, but like some people at home office, they get real paranoid about that. Maybe in 1970 when there was like no laptop computer,
right,
no internet.
Right.
But it's 2022,
today,
and
especially after the pandemic,
right?
Yes, everyone's working from home.
It's just sort of it's unnecessary. I also think that the paranoia stems from lack of understanding. Knowledge is power. We know that, so they don't understand, and so they're very paranoid. Again, if your CPA, tax professional, bookkeeper cannot bring you comfort and help you understand what those things are, then you might be with the wrong person, right? And you're not going to be a good client to them, especially if you've got like this mindset that it doesn't matter what they say, they can't be right. Right, the government's still out to get me, and everything's going to go wrong, and like I'm just a target. I'm a target on my back, right?
Right.
So, in some cases, I do think there are some reasons to be paranoid. But if you're working with a really great advisor and you have a relationship where you're communicating and talking frequently, then those types of things are easily resolved. Because you are proactively kind of discussing, like, here's the risks of doing that, and if structuring it in a way where it mitigates the risk. There's always more than one way to skin a cat, right? So express your concerns, paranoia, if you will, whatever you want to call it, but talk about. Generate ideas on, is there a better way?
Right.
I could get what I wanted without unnecessary risk.
That's good. I like that. All right, then we have the client that is shocked every year. If an individual's tax situation doesn't change much from year to year, his or her tax bill is probably going to be similar from year to year. Makes sense to most people.
Yeah, I mean, we love the people that are, like they owe a lot of money in taxes, and they're so surprised. It's like, you made $5 million last year. They have forgotten. Taxes? I mean, everyone's goal as an individual, right, as a taxpayer, is I have forgotten how much money I've made. And so I'm perplexed by the amount of tax I owe. Sounds great. Good problem to have, I guess.
It is a good problem to have.
But it's a bad problem to have as a client, because surprise leads to panic. Panic is emotional. The emotional response is what leads to this very you've done something wrong.
Right.
And that's like a bad pathway. Try not to go down that pathway. The solution to this is tax planning. So having meetings, depending on your income level. I mean, if you're making $5 million a year, you can't just wait till April 15th and calculate what your extension payment is. You will be surprised. You will be in panic mode. It will happen. So depending on your income level, you adjust the services you need from your accountant to say, okay, let's do mid-year tax planning. Let's do end-of-year tax planning. I know about how much I owe through June 30th. Okay, that's good. I can earmark that money. I know what's going on. Here's some strategies we can employ to reduce the taxes. I start working on those before I get to the end of the year. We're calculating. We know exactly what we owe 4 months before we even get to the deadline. So on April 15th, it's no surprise.
Right.
And that is important. A lot of accountants do not focus on that, although they should. It helps the client, right? And the client needs to be asking about that too. Again, the two-way street kind of thing. What are your expectations about when am I going to know how much I owe?
Right.
And if you make a lot of money and you owe a lot in taxes, liquidating investments, that's stressful. Now you got to get your financial advisor involved. Now you have capital gains. Now you got more taxes that you owe. So it begets problems, right? Problem begets problem. And that stress level then gets high. And then that's when you're expressing like, I just need a new accountant. So, yes, some of it's on the CPAs.
I will direct people to listen to the first podcast that you and I recorded about tax planning strategies, because you had some great advice in there on strategies that people can employ to reduce that tax liability. So definitely check that out. All right, then we have the dribbler. It's tough to get all your information together at once, and sometimes people just forget something. But clients who continually drop off new information that will change the entire return aren't doing anybody any favors. Dribbling wastes the time of the tax preparer and means bigger expense for the client.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate on this on the business side of CPAs, like when do you start preparation? Do you have to have 100% of the data before you even start? Do you 80%? So if you've got, a list of 10 items that you need from the client, we'll start if we get 8 of the items, right? So a lot of that really sort of depends on what their business processes look like. Probably good to clarify. So if you are the dribbler, you probably need to know, like, I'm not going to see anything until I submit everything in July. Like, then they're going to keep telling you, we will not start until you send us 80% of the information. So get some clarity around that.
Right.
When do you start working on my return, on my books, or whatever the project is?
Right.
Like, if you don't have all the data, you can't do all the work. The other thing that I would say about that is that many people are trying to control their refund. So they'll get a draft of their tax return and they'll say, oh, no, I have one more charitable deduction I'd like to add to that.
So they're trying to get that tax liability down by adding more.
Right. Okay. That will end you up on that 20% list. Because the reprocessing the tax return over and over again, adjusting it and doing it, that's just more time that the CPA is spending having to do this. It's the redo. No one wants to duplicate their efforts.
No.
Send us everything and that's it.
Yeah.
So, again, the onus is on the client.
Yes.
And so, there are some CPAs who will charge extra if you all of a sudden have this magical new, I forgot about this charitable contribution because you wanted your refund to be more. So expect to pay for that.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, good point.
So,
All right, last one. The halfway do-it-yourselfer.
Oh, yeah.
I love DIY as much as anyone, but some people just don't need to try to do their own returns, especially if the return is complicated. It usually takes longer to quickly review, quote unquote, a DIY return than it does to do a return from scratch.
Yeah.
Have you found that to be the case as well?
We won't even do it. We won't even review returns. They're self-prepared.
Okay. So you always are going to do it from the beginning yourself.
Right. Because, it's basically us preparing it. We got to get all the source documents and verify that everything is in the right place. So, no, we won't do it. So, and there might be some CPAs that do, but it is a challenge because you've got to basically, you got to understand where everything goes on the tax return and then ask a bunch of questions, and you're generally not as familiar with it. When you don't go through that preparation process, you haven't thought through all the things you got to think through to actually prepare it. So it is more challenging, and it's kind of dropped in your lap, like, hey, can you get this done for me real fast? It shouldn't take you more than, 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Don't you love that?
Yeah.
It shouldn't. I love when the sentence starts with, it shouldn't take you more than.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, in that case, why aren't you doing it?
That's right. So, again, the DIY mentality must go. This applies to almost everything in business. Most people, they have to start off bootstrapping it a little bit, but get advice. Learn at least the basics so you're not screwing it up too badly. But as quickly as you can, get out of doing the things that are not in your wheelhouse, the things that you do not do best. I certainly, like I had alluded to before, I do not change my own oil in my car.
I don't either.
Because
I'm with you on that.
I would probably screw it up, and it's going to cost me more in the long run because now I've hurt or damaged my vehicle.
Right.
So I'm not even going to attempt that.
Right.
So that same mentality needs to be applied to accounting and taxes. You might end up costing yourself more money to fix it than it would have been to just do it right the first time.
Absolutely.
So
good point.
Yes.
I love it.
Just get help, expert help. So eliminate this DIY mentality. Gotta go.
I love it. I think we have thoroughly gone over this topic of what it takes to be a good client and not be a nightmare client, right?
I feel like so too, yes.
So now you can give this video or podcast link to anyone you're about to engage with and say, just listen to this before we start.
I think that's so true. The last thing that I would add to that is please read your emails.
Yes.
Please read the engagement letters. Read. When your CPA sends you an email,
Look at it.
Yeah, they put time and effort into telling you, giving you instructions, wanting you to understand something. Do them the courtesy of reading it.
That's good.
Read it.
That's a good final note. Tell people where they can find you if they would like to talk with you or perhaps engage your services.
Awesome. Sure. You can read more about us on our website. It's www.mbgcpa.com. Find me on LinkedIn, Susan Bryant, CPA, CTC. So, hook up with me there, and would love to talk to anybody who is wanting to handle on their tax situation. Taxes are pain.
Yeah, they are. But you do help with that process, and I love the way that you do.
Yeah, well, we're trying to pay a lot less taxes than we have to.
That's right. Absolutely. And I can't say enough good things about Susan. She's fantastic. So highly recommend her.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me again. This has been awesome, as usual.
Oh, dittos. So much fun. Really love being here.
And I'm Lindsay Klein with Sakline. You can find us at sakline.com, sakline.com. And of course, we always want to help out with any bookkeeping needs, just as Susan alluded to. Don't be doing this yourself. We are here to help. You can email us at info@sakline.com. I am Lindsay Klein and your host of Buy the Books. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, have a great week.
Buy the Books is presented by Sakline. Honest, accurate bookkeeping performed on time. For more information on Sakline services or to get a hold of Lindsay, visit sakline.com or email info@sakline.com.
The information provided on this website and podcast does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all information, content, and materials available are for general information purposes only. Information provided by Sakline may not constitute the most up-to-date legal or other information. Listeners should contact their attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular legal matter and should refrain from acting on the basis of this information without first seeking legal advice from counsel in the relevant jurisdiction. Only your individual attorney can provide assurances that the information contained herein and your interpretation of it is applicable or appropriate to your particular situation.